So Manan is an assistant director here at Arch College of Design and Business, trained as a product designer from London, with a culturally rooted background towards being dedicated to problem-solving approach. Along with managing creative projects from ideas to existence, he is also a passionate wildlife photographer and a conservationist. So the session will be conducted by him on this topic of creative photography. Has also an added interest in graphics, branding, system design, and indigenous crafts. And Alois very much enjoys exploring cultural interpretation of different materiality in correlation with beauty, form, and function. So I welcome Manan sir.
I'm a passionate person when it comes to design, and photography has helped me a lot. So today's session is going to be about how can creativity be nurtured through tools of observation. And being a self-taught photographer myself, and being close to nature and wildlife, I've learned a lot of things over the years. And one of the most important things that I've learned is patience. I feel that today there's no time for patience, right? You want to scroll your feed every second. You want to feed on content every second, and there's so much around us that we are distracted. So how can we ground ourselves to the surroundings that we are in and observe them is something that is going to be really crucial in your journey to become designers. Okay, so framing creativity, a photographer's guide to nurturing creativity through observation, right? So to start with, I'm going to give you a brief introduction. There are 4 broad areas: the power of observation, seeing beyond the obvious, embracing imperfections, collaborating and sharing, and a final conclusion. As a photographer, I've always believed that creativity is not just about talent, but a skill that can be developed through practice and observation. In this presentation, I will explore how creative observation can nurture creativity in photography and beyond. By observing the world around us with a fresh perspective, we can unlock new ideas, perspectives, and insights that can lead to innovative solutions and artistic impression. So if I talk about the power of observation, many of you might have seen, or noticed around you throughout the day, so many things that are around us: details, patterns, relationship between things, how flowers respond to the sun, or how the grass gets greener over the seasons, right? And things keep changing. I'm sorry if I'm going to take more of nature examples, because I don't know which all different subjects you belong to, but you can always prompt me and I'll come up with as good examples as I can, which are relevant to your area of specialization. So in photography, observation is an essential to capturing unique and compelling images by being carefully observing the environment, light, composition. So it is our job as photographers to create images that convey a mood, a story, and an emotion, right? So that is the intent of photography. And every individual takes pictures to represent what they want to convey. When you capture pictures of yourself in form of memories, that is also a way of conveying a mood, a story, or an emotion, right? So it does not have to be that you are a professional photographer or you own a DSLR or a camera at all times. Your eye is the biggest camera that is there within you, and your brain is the biggest memory card that anybody could give you. So every time you see and observe, you are capturing. When I talk about photography, photography is not just a tool, it's a direct inspiration of how a human functions, because it is one of our most important senses, which is our eyes, of how we perceive and how we look around, right? So seeing beyond the obvious. Creative observation is about seeing beyond the obvious and discovering hidden connections and meanings. By looking at things from different angles, perspectives, we can uncover new possibilities and insights. In photography, means exploring unconventional compositions, experimenting with lighting, colors, finding beauty in unexpected places, challenging our assumptions and biases. We can create images that surprise, inspire, and challenge our viewers. So when we are conveying a story, everybody sees that what you have created from their own point of view. But if you can find out a way to convey your side of the story as well as their own, it becomes a more, conversative experience for both people, because then you can talk about it, right? So embracing imperfections, this is something that is really important. Beautiful photographs are not about taking, perfect moments or perfect things or having the perfect setting. It's about how you've gone through the process of accepting the flaws, the mistakes, the failures of your creative process. And we can learn and grow from those mistakes that we make as artists. So this means being experimenting with different techniques, taking risks, being open to feedback and critiques, pushing ourselves out of comfort zones, and we can discover new ways of seeing and expressing ourselves. So a little while back, I was invited to Banaras by a school. They have 30 schools in UP, and they launched a book on Banaras. We have the book in our library, and the book was about Banaras itself, Varanasi. So during COVID, what they did was that the students, they went out asking their parents or fighting at home, and they went out during COVID to capture stories of their city because they were sitting idle at school. So they went to the city of Banaras, which was their hometown. They met people like sadhus, people who've been preaching about the city's heritage and culture. They photographed those experiences, and each kid wrote an article or a story that they created from their experiences, and they compiled that into a book. It was a beautiful piece along with a photographic journey of that. So the outcome got beautiful, and the experience was even enriching because they did not look at how perfect things could be. So things will never be perfect, and your surroundings will always be challenging, and they will always be not comfortable. And I think that's the best part, and that is where the role of a designer comes in, to create an experience for people that is comfortable. Be it making homes, be it making clothes, be it making products, be it making graphics that visually appeal you, or even documenting anything and everything that's around us. So always embrace imperfections, collaborating and sharing. Right. So if we are not working together in this, I won't be able to help all of you today, because the assignments that I am going to give you are going to be challenging and comprehensive and very detailed. It's a lot to do within just a day, but I want you to just give in and for a day, accept that you will follow whatever is asked of you, not think twice, not question it, just dive in and join the community. So we'll be able to conduct something like an exhibition in the evening and curate everything together. And then we'll exchange feedback about what our learnings was. I will give you a brief introduction about the tool of photography and what is important and what is not, right? Right. So creative observation is a powerful tool for nurturing creativity in photography and beyond. By observing the world around us with curiosity, openness, and empathy, we can unlock new ideas, perspectives, and insights that can transform our work and our lives. As photographers, we have a unique opportunity to capture and share our observation with the world and to inspire others to see in a new light. So let us embrace that power of observation and use it to create meaningful, impactful images that reflect our vision and values, right? All of you are from different parts of the country, and all of you come from different cultural backgrounds and contexts. You've been raised differently, you speak different languages, you have different habits, and you have different areas of interest. I want this activity, and I've created it in a way that it would leave you that self-expression to come up with something that represents you completely, right? You'll have ideally 4 to 5 hours to finish this program. The topic, like I said, is how creativity can be nurtured through tools of observation, creative photography. And this is an important subject in design because in every project you have to document, you have to capture, and you have to substantiate everything you create with proof. So even if you go to do research, you have to take pictures of the craftsmen, you have to go take pictures of the site visits, you have to take interviews of the people you come across, you have to ask your peers about feedback as to how your design is, what do you think can be improved. So the more you do that, the better you will be able to perform, because the more quantitative and qualitative feedback that you get from your surroundings, the better you will be able to observe and develop this skill in you, right? So what's covered on this program, right? It's not 6 days, it's 6 hours, forgive that. But it's a day-wise plan that I had created, which I am consolidating into hours for you, right? Photography as a creative tool, objectives, learning outcomes, know your equipment at the assignment. So take it as that the day is actually a couple of minutes that I will be taking the next presentation. So composition and lighting, aperture, ISO, shutter speed. So these are the only 4 factors that govern your photograph, and they are completely relevant to your human anatomy, right? How much light is going in your eyes in the day or the evening, how big is your eyes aperture opening or closing. ISO is your sensitivity towards light. Like I have a huge flashlight in front of my face, which is making my pupils smaller because there's too much light coming through, right? Shutter speed, like you're blinking. So how much are you capturing in every blink? So translate that into your human anatomy and you will be able to relate to the program even if you don't like photography as much. I am sure you like seeing the world around you. So photography is an art form like drawing and painting. Photographers use their cameras to make us see life in a different way, feel emotions, and record stories, events, memories as they perceive it. So storytelling is a very important part of design, and not just design. Even if you have a brand tomorrow, today what sells is a story, not a product, not nothing else. It's all about storytelling, and you are also buying the brands in which you relate with and those that you have relevance with. So storytelling is very key to design and the future that is ahead of us. Exposure is how much light hits your sensor. If it hits for too long, your picture is overexposed and blown out. If it's too short, your picture is underexposed and too dark. You're always surrounded by light and it plays a crucial role in various modes you want to capture, right? So in the day, there is the golden hour where the light is warm, and then there is the evening when the sun is going down, where the lights are sort of bluish. So they're both warm and cool colors, and the mids between them. It would seem that one should simply let the camera determine the optimal exposure, right? Absolutely. Cameras can make pretty good guesses most of the time. That's what automatic modes on cameras do, but we don't want to rely on guesses. We want to be in control, right? So I want you all to be in control. To be in control, you have to learn something that is called the exposure triangle. So it is key that there are 3 variables that control the exposure, which means that there are near infinite number of ways to get correct exposure and end results all look different. The 3 variables are ISO, aperture, and shutter speed, completing the exposure triangle. I hope you're taking notes. To be creative is to shoot with purpose and vision, and involves conscious manipulation of gear, settings, light, perspective, composition, and processing to capture the envisioned mood or story. Creativity is challenging oneself to think differently in an effort to reveal the unapparent. So a few tools that will help you improve your observation skills and boost your creativity or nurture it is to maintain an idea journal. Get into the habit of writing down your thoughts, ideas. It's a great way to kickstart a creative process. If you don't feel that you are that creative, the creativity is sitting inside you somewhere, hiding. Bring it out. Restricting your gadgets. So exploring multiple ways to capture photographs can be exciting, but when you have less, you make the most of it. So my journey started with a very small camera, and I used to spend the whole day looking at insects because I had such a small lens back in my school days that all I could take pictures was insects. right? Even though I was interested in animals, that's all I could do. But I explored so much that I learned the whole camera because of those insects that I captured. Create an inspiration, Pinterest or Instagram board. So documenting what you like and you are drawn to is essential to identifying your personal style. That also helps in keeping you fueled with inspiration and new ideas, right? So a lot of times I've seen that students use Pinterest boards and copy things instantly. The idea is not to take something that is already there and make it yours. You have to identify what are those forms, what are those areas, and develop your own. That is a starting point for your inspiration, but don't let it be the only point of inspiration. Yeah, that is the whole idea when I talk about taking inspiration from these boards. It is not to copy, but a starting point, not the only point. Yeah, starting point, not the only. Take a photo challenge, start a project. So if you challenge yourself, if you have an idea that you come up with, that I want to create a series of something that looks like this or something that communicates a story like this. I want to document my mom of how she spends her entire day. I want to document a process of how tea is made in a very creative way so that my father knows how my mother actually makes the tea that he enjoys so much. So it can be that small an initiative, but it could create a huge impact. So if an idea or a concept comes to your mind, try and experiment with it. Don't stop there. Keep pursuing it. The more you pursue it, the better you will become with challenges and accepting new challenges. Explore your creativity with equipment. There are various attachments and life hacks available that can give you ideas to explore what your equipment can do differently. Image manipulation. This has become huge now. There is Photoshop, there is Lightroom, there is Snapseed, there is Canva, there is whatnot with where you can do manipulations, you can mirror images, you can remove backgrounds with AI. There are so many phone applications that you can explore. Your filters are a huge example of what image manipulation and post-production is in photography, to give it the mood, to give it a feeling, to give it a proper theme for the viewer to understand it in a better way, right? So what are the different types of genres? I am sure that you don't like photography, that's okay, but I'm sure you like what you're going to capture. So there are topics like lifestyle, portrait, landscape, fine art, street photography, wedding and events, night photography, light trails, black and white, sports, nature and wildlife, astronomy, still life photography, food, travel, product photography, fashion photography, interior photography, journalism, drone, architecture, abstracts, and so many more genres that are objectives. This course concentrates on techniques, aesthetics, and communication in photographic medium. Students learn the basics of digital photography through a series of assignments. This course will be developing the knowledge of principles of aesthetic and visual communication and integrating these principles creatively in still photography. Students will demonstrate through knowledge and application of DSLR cameras and smartphone camera techniques to capture still imagery using creative photography. I am sure all of you have phones with you, if not cameras. If you have cameras, even better. By the end of this unit, students will be able to plan and execute the creation of photographic imagery following an iterative process of research, ideation, visualization, analysis, production, and evaluation. Participate effectively in discourse of current photographic practices, define and develop themes for photographic bodies of work, select the photographic format and process most appropriate to the goals of the project, create imagery which meets the requirement of different media. So your Instagram, your phones, your computer screens, your flexes, banners, and all these places, every place has a different application. So you have to understand from that perspective why you're capturing. You have to think about it, even though you're not going to use it, you have to think about it ahead. Know your equipment. So the course is suitable for students who are familiar with basic introduction of mechanics of a DSLR, but you can always explore other things like your smartphones have cameras. Nowadays, smartphone also allows you to adjust ISO, shutter speed, and aperture within the camera. A normal iPhone, if you have one, it works on a 1.8 to 2.3 field of aperture, which is basic, and other cameras do too. So The only restriction is that there is only a certain point until which you can bring the object close to you, and then out, as soon as it goes out of range, it will be out of focus, right? So yeah, your cameras, your backgrounds, suitable materials at home, so you can use your own backdrops. You can find your own light source, which is a bulb, a flashlight, or a torch, or a candle. So these are the 4 elements that you would need, right? You need a camera or a smartphone. You need any backgrounds, could be paper, could be fabric, could be your mom's blanket, could be your towel for all I care. Light sources could be bulbs, flash, torches, candles, fire, whatever you like. You can be as experimentative as you like in selecting these 4 things, but don't put, put your house on fire, please. That is not what I'm saying. Products for shoot experimentation. Otherwise, your parents would be like, what is Manan teaching these kids in class? Assignment 1, click a series of 3 photographs that communicate creative photography in your perspective. Think about what story you want these photographs to narrate. Emphasis is on color. So keep yourself safe while planning and executing the shoot. Avoid plagiarism. Take inspiration from good works that are there. Most importantly, plan your own shoot. So you have to think ahead about the concept, what you want to capture, and then start capturing it. Not just that you go out like taking pictures like shoot. You're wasting a lot of your phone memory. Don't do that. Plan. Define what you want to do, because as designers, it is very important to define your direction. So define that. Assignment should be conducted using fresh, original thinking. Shoots and shoot pictures is the best in the best resolution possible. Maintain a journal of ideas and concentrate on those ideas that you want to showcase, right? Next, aperture. So aperture is on the diaphragm of the lens, is the mechanism which enables the holes through which light passes to change the size. The hole is called aperture. When the diaphragm is completely open, the aperture is large, and when it lets huge amount of light through, it becomes smaller. When the diaphragm is close to the size of pinhole, the aperture is tiny. It lets only a little bit of light through. With this in mind, you want to close the aperture on the bright and sunny day, so as to not let too much light come through to the film or photo sensor. Or a dark or dreary day, you want to open the aperture so as to let as much light in as possible in order to get a good photograph. Priority mode. So a lot of you must have seen on your cameras that there are aperture priority modes. There is an A written on a dial above your camera, or a P, which is program mode. So these 2 modes focus on aperture priority. What aperture priority means is that the camera will be handling the aperture. Everything else can be done manually. So when you set the aperture properly, the camera will automatically take care of other adjustments. One situation in which you would want to use aperture priority would be to shoot a landscape photograph where you are concerned that you want the best depth of field. So the smaller the aperture would be, the less depth of field would be. The higher you go with the aperture number, the more depth of field would be, but it would get darker, right? Number जितना बढ़ता है, photo उतनी dark होती है. नंबर जितना कम होता है, फोटो उतनी ब्राइट होती है. जितना कम होता है नंबर, उतना पास का ऑब्जेक्ट शूट कर सकते हो. नंबर जितना हायर होगा, उतना दूर का ऑब्जेक्ट शूट कर सकते हो. तो आपने देखा होगा कि ब्लर्ड लुक आता है, या आपके फोन में पोर्ट्रेट मोड होता है, right? So that portrait mode is basically low aperture. So it's focusing on your subject and everything in the back is all blurry. But if you want a more landscape or a more dynamic photograph, you want it to be higher. What it does, it makes the photograph darker by adding more details that are farther away from the camera, something like a landscape. But then there are other ways to fix that darkness. Okay, and we'll come to that. Depth of field is in the zone which an item being photographed is in focus. For instance, if you're photographing a car from the front can be in focus, but the near end could be out of focus, right? One of the differences between a wide angle lens and a telephoto lens is that it inherits the depth of field. A telephoto lens has a narrow depth of field. A wide angle lens has a much greater depth of field. Subsequently, with a zoom lens, you could try bringing in the entire limousine into focus. just by changing the zoom lens to its wide angle settings, right? Just to give you an example, the greater the depth of field in your photograph, the more things in both the foreground and the background will be in focus. To get the greatest depth of field, the aperture needs to be the smallest, not letting very much light through. In order to get a well exposed photograph, you'll have to compensate by other settings, like I said. So this is an example that I captured in London. The focus is 1.8. I was doing a shoot for a fashion house. Here the focus is 1.8, which is the aperture, or you can call it the f-stop also. And you have this feature now in most of the smartphones as well. This is another photograph of a landscape. So you can see the last detail of the sun, the rays, number of strokes that are there, the clouds. This was in Uttarakhand. If I talk about the stops, these are the general typical f stops that are there: 1.8, 2.8, 3.5, 5.6, 8, f11, f13, so on and so forth. Right. So aperture settings called f stops are determined by manufacturers according to the focal length of the lens. These are typically the numbers that are used to define. So for example, an f3.5 lets in twice as much light as f5.6, but only half as much light as f2.8. Each increment is called a stop. Higher the f stop, lower the depth of field, giving you more dynamism, and vice versa. Okay, there was a video, but I think you can look at the video in your own time. You can go on YouTube and look it up, and it will explain you everything about what an aperture does. Bokeh. So bokeh is another creative tool in photography. The first activity that I have already shared with you is capturing 3 creative photographs. We are now in the second part, which is talking about aperture. Here I'm going to give you your second activity. So it's going to be an extensive assignment, but a quick one. Don't worry. And I'll give you a proper template for presentation. The effect of a soft out of focus background that you get when shooting a subject using a fast lens at the widest aperture, such as f2.8 or wider. So have you seen those Diwali lights become round and blurry? That's called a bokeh effect. In other words, bokeh is rendered by camera's lens, and different lenses produce different results. That's because bokeh is affected by the aperture, most specifically the shape of the diaphragm blades of the lens. So because of the one that can you see the icon on the right, where there is a hole in this shutter that is there? That hexagon is what creates that round, blurry looking dot of a light. And same happens with your eyes, the same happens with a camera, your phone. And if you put, let's say, you take a paper and you cut a heart in it and you put it in front of your eyes and you try to look at light, you'll start seeing heart-shaped lights coming inside your eye, similar to a pinhole camera. So if you change the shape of the diaphragm, it could be a heart, it could be a star, it could create the same style or same shape of the bokeh that can be creatively used in a photograph, right? This, for example, is a traffic scene, and you can see the bokeh lights at the back. There are different aperture genres that are there, and you can explore those genres to look at what different types of depth of field is used to capture different styles of genres. So like I said, a portrait photograph would have a low aperture, but a landscape photograph, a high aperture number. So because of aperture, the genres of photography also shift. Yet again, so you can use camera, a background, a light source, and product to develop this. You have to follow the instructions. The assignment is to use aperture priority and observe how cameras auto adjust the shutter speed and light to affect its subject. The focus is to use aperture in different scenarios. Use your smartphones to explore depth with distance, and using portrait modes available in your device. You can submit 3 best shots with different apertures. This is a small video of a project that we did. The next topic that I am going to talk about is relevant to this video. So have a look at it. I know the audio is not coming through, but it's a short video about the project that students of the foundation department and other departments did a couple years ago, and they created an installation out of waste. So this is what the power of observation does. They saw that there is a lot of waste of fabric, test fit garments, and they created a 25 feet long garment, stitching it together. So each different garment was stitched together to create a larger garment. So your buttons, your surface ornamentation, you can see a dress of a different color in the middle of it. And then how lighting can be used to create a dramatic photograph, right? Okay, so I just talked about lighting and how it can create a dramatic effect. Coming down to ISO, sensitivity to light. To begin, the sensitivity of the receptor determines the amount of light recorded in photographs. The receptors are either film in a traditional camera or the photo or digital chip in a digital camera. Can someone tell me what is a light sensor in our eyes? None of you are from science background, I presume. So your iris and the cap behind your eye, you must have seen in the biology class, there's a small layer that is there. That is our digital chip basically that captures the light that we see. So whatever you see out there is captured by another sensor inside our eye, and that is what lets us see color. Some people have a defective sensor, so they don't see certain colors. So you come across people who are colorblind, who don't see greens and browns or blues. Right? It usually happens with these three colors, and it's there in a lot of people. It's quite common, and sometimes people don't even know that they are slightly colorblind. That's okay. So it is our job as designers to understand that we are able to create. So in graphic design, they have now started creating graphics that are colorblind friendly, because it's all about inclusive design, right? So somebody would think, यार कोई colorblind है उसके लिए graphic designer क्या करेगा? So people have started, iPhone has also enabled a feature within the phone which makes it colorblind friendly. So it will show you an alternate color to show you the real color that you can't see, or make it completely different. So that is how design is changing, how technology is affecting how we use our surroundings and our perception and observation skills to make our lives better. Right? It is a very basic term. ISO is simply a camera setting that will brighten or darken a photograph. As you increase your ISO number, your photo will grow progressively brighter, and vice versa. It will grow progressively darker in environments where you reduce the ISO. Right? You can also control it with the aperture and shutter speed. So in the exposure triangle means exposure to light. All three of them work on lighting, and our daily lives we work on lighting, and that affects most of moods, most of the setting, most of the themes that we create. In interiors, lighting is super important. In fashion, lighting is super important, because if the garment is not shown or displayed properly, it will not come together the way that the designer has intended to. In graphics, light is very important. It is the lightness and darkness of color that you are using that somebody would see. If this presentation was a dark bluish color, maybe you would not have been able to read the black text on it, but because of it, you're able to do it. So there is a tool by Adobe. It's called Adobe Color Wheel. You can go on Adobe's website. It's free to use, and you can explore all different color psychologies that are there and create your own structures and analogies. So use technology. There's so much out there that you can use to create best quality or best results in terms of producing something that is accurate and something that is defined by you and you are in control. Right? So a 200 ISO is low sensitivity, 400 is twice, 800 is 4 times of 200. So as it keeps increasing, it mostly increases in the number of 200s and doubles afterwards that. 6400, then 12,800, then 32,000, then 56,000. Then now cameras have come which go 1 lakh plus in ISO. Cameras by Sony Alpha 1 or your Mark D 1D Mark, and all these cameras, they go much ahead of these. So more light can be brought in by uh, reducing very less loss of pixels, because the more pixels that come in, the more loss it could create. The more light that floods in, the more loss of pixel that it will cause. That's why at night you get these noisy, blurry photographs or very grainy photographs, because not enough light is coming in. That's why the camera, to make it visible to your eye, it is digitally improvising the photograph to be visible to you, which creates noise. So how we can omit that, or how we can surpass that noise, you have to understand the lighting to do that. So this is one example of full sunlight, which I captured a couple years ago. It's a knock-bill duck. And it also gives you a great example of what depth of field means, how a farmland behind is becoming a very blurry background and making my subject super sharp. This is another example of a photograph I captured in, where was this? This was in Tadoba, yeah, near Nagpur, Tadoba and the Hari Tiger Reserve. So this has a little bit less depth, but you can see that the subject is in focus, the background is less blurry. And then this is the flamingos I was talking to you about, that this is when the sun had not come up, the sky was still a little blue, then the sun came up and it became yellow. So the whole observation of color change, the movement change of the behavior of the animals, it lets you learn a lot about nature, about yourself. And there are so many thoughts. Whenever I don't feel that I am thinking straight or thinking right, I go out there in the nature. And I think everybody should have an anchor point. So find your anchor point. For me, I found my anchor point in photography. And whenever I feel like grounding myself or finding a stable ground, I go do photography. For some people, it's art. For some people, it's music. For some people, it's dance. So find your anchor point to fuel your creativity and to nurture it as a tool for observation. It is very important to be able to ground yourself. And that anchor point is really necessary. Some people think that talking to a friend is an anchor point, and every time they are not feeling okay, they talk to a friend. So everybody has different ways or different coping mechanisms and different anchor points. So I want you to come up with your anchor point when you present in the evening. So I've just got 5 minutes to really glimpse you guys through this. Noise and grain is what I mentioned. This is what it means at an ISO of 4000, which means there's going to be a lot of noise and less detail. So you can see how less detailed it is, but it is still showing me the subject. This is at 3200. So can you see the difference at 4000 to 3200 ISO? The clarity has suddenly improved, but the lighting is still there because I played with other settings of the camera. The image became brighter, yet the ISO was bad. This is another at 12,800. Changing ISO varies from camera to camera. Manual, shutter priority, aperture priority, program mode, these are all available in your camera. In your phones, you can do it by tapping on the screen, either pulling down the screen or pulling up the screen. That is what controls the lighting of how much light it is letting to come in. So remember to tap on your screen, increase the light, decrease your light, choose the subject to focus on it. If you hold your subject on your camera for too long, it is going to lock the subject's aperture on that subject, and then you can adjust your light accordingly. So every feature that I have just talked about is not just a camera feature, it is a human feature, it is a phone feature, and it is all around us if you look a little closely. Maximize your image quality. So select a aperture setting that will provide desired depth of field, set your ISO to its base value and shutter speed to whatever setting provides proper exposure, balance and lighting. So blue sky would be 1100 Kelvin, hazy sky 8000 Kelvin, daylight at noon is 5500 Kelvin. These are important numbers to understand what warm lighting is and what blue lighting is. So when you mix the two, you come in the area of white light, which is your daylight, right? Yeah, this is a chart to give you an example. So when you see or you buy LEDs, when you want to buy warm white or warm yellow LEDs, they are mostly around 3000 Kelvin, which is ideal for reading. But if you want to do detailed work or long hours of working in an area, it is preferred that you move more towards 5000 to 4000 range, and so on and so forth. Incandescent, fluorescent, and natural light are three different areas. Again, know your equipment. The assignment here is to incorporate the knowledge that I've given you, and you have to present a compilation of all the assignments that I've given you until now. And remember to find the EXIF information. So use this day to look back at what you have learned and start compiling your work in a PDF. Write short notes around what caught your eye in this document. Keep the assignment separate and write your manual setting you use to achieve each shot. This is called EXIF information. I'm going to share the presentation template with Uday. He's going to share it with you. It's a basic template which you can use to create all this, right? Shutter speed. तो आप पलक झपकते हो और पलक झपकते ही कहीं कुछ होता है, वो कहीं और चला जाता है, right? So some things are capturable by the naked eye, some things are not. But in a shutter speed on a camera, you can capture the feather of a bird, a dragonfly, and everything that is basic f-stop numbers that are there, a few photographs to give you the idea of what shutter speed can do. Another example of what shutter speed can do, right? Your sports mode is what gives your shutter priority. Basically, the S that you see, it's not for sports, but yeah, it works in sports because it's shutter priority. So people think it's sports mode. Sports mode is separate. It is the one underneath auto where you have a running man. That is sports. S means shutter priority, right? Suspended movement, motion blurs, visual flow. So if you want to capture somebody riding a bicycle or a fast moving car, you can do all of that. These are a few examples that I've taken over the years. The first one is a photograph of a model jumping up in the sky. So she's levitating almost. Second one is a night shot in London, which is Lumiere. There's a light festival that happens every year annually in London. I've captured that across the city. The third one is one of my favorites. It's actually leopard drinking water. So this is more of an evening setting. This is called a high key photograph when you look at shutter speed and the aperture that you adjust. So sometimes overexposure can create beautiful photographs. The eye was dark and I did not want to show the owl. I wanted to show the eye. So I increased the shutter speed, right? And I reduced the f-stop. So it gave me a sharper eye, but no details because the shutter was quick, yet the photo was much brighter, right? So increasing the ISO, increasing the shutter, but playing on the f-stop here gave me this result. So this is a high key photograph. High key is a mid-range to brighter range. It is mostly in the tones of white, and the vice versa is low key, which is upbeat or downbeat photograph, where we created a concept with one of our students from 2 years ago. This was on Holi, and then this shows how different pictures, if put together, they can be made into a GIF that represents the story, right? So I would not have been able to capture throwing so much of holy color on the face and also capturing the whole movement. But I was able to do that because the shutter speed was high and I was capturing a photograph every second, right? Long exposure. When you leave the shutter on a low speed for a long time, you capture the night sky like the Milky Way or the movement of the clouds or movement of water, right? So yeah, happy clicking, guys. Good luck.
Yes, thank you, sir. That was very informative. I
Yeah.
hope they have learned a lot from this.